to the September 16th, 2025 special session, which is our 20th voting session and work session of the Mayor and City Council of Hagerstown. The meeting is now called to order. I'd like to ask for a motion to move into special session.
So moved.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We're now in special session. All right. First motion is the introduction of an ordinance authorizing the purchase and sale of the property located at 149 North Potomac Street, Hagerstown, Maryland.
I hereby move to introduce an ordinance authorizing the purchase and sale of property located at 149 North Potomac Street, Hagerstown, Maryland, from 149 North Potomac LLC. The purchase price will be $2.5 million is to be paid for the general fund reserves.
Can I have a second? Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
This one, I just came it out, so it's in
Okay.
the next motion is in what's laying there beside your packet. It's the Heart of Civil War Heritage Area. It was not in the packet.
Everybody see it? It's one page.
Just want to make sure, but
Okay. Approval of a FY26 city funding support for Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area agency contributions.
Mr. Mayor, I move for the mayor and council approval of $10,000 in city agency contribution funding to support the Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area. Staff from Heart of the Civil War Heritage Area requested funding from the mayor and council at the August 19, 2025 meeting. The $10,000 will be paid quarterly in even payments in compliance with the agency contribution policy throughout FY26. The funding source is from the FY26 General Fund Unspecified Agency Contributions budgeted line item.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passed. Okay, that adjourns special session, and we'll move right into work session. First up is Community Forestry Catalyst Grant Application, Mr. Jim Bender.
Good afternoon. Every year we apply for grants to do tree planting here in the city, usually through the Chesapeake Bay Trust. And I think we've been successful every time that we've applied. Just earlier this summer, I came to you with news that we had been awarded another grant to do tree planting, and council voted to accept that grant. There's another grant program there that just came out this year called the Community Catalyst Fund grant. And what's different about this grant, it's still trying to get more trees planted, but most of the grants that we get for tree planting, you can only do a little bit of site preparation with that money. They want you to plant trees, not necessarily spend it on creating new tree pits or doing other things to prepare for planting. This fund is specifically set up that we can do some of that preparation. We can use the money for preparation. And probably the biggest item that needs to be prepared is we have a lot of existing tree pits that could be planted, but there are still stumps in those pits. And it's expensive to go in and remove those stumps before you plant. So we have been avoiding trying to put trees back in those tree pits. But this funding through this grant would allow us to do that. And we've got a list of, I think, at least 33 existing tree pits that have stumps in them that we will be able to use this grant funding to remove those stumps. And then we can use our other grant funding to actually plant trees back in there. So we're asking for $50,000 from the state, which is the maximum under the track that we're going under. And we would match that with an additional $10,000 from the city's stormwater fund. So because of the amount of the grant in our grant policy, we need council's authorization to apply for this funding.
Fine with me.
Good.
I just have a question. How does it work? Is it like a community driven thing? So once we get started, we just asking the community to come together? And I'm only asking that because I know the Russell Hicks is doing tree planting too. So Just curious.
It can be. One of the components of this particular grant is they have a screening tool that you can look at on their website that shows areas that are considered to be disadvantaged within the city. And if you look at the mapping in the city, virtually the whole city is classified as being disadvantaged. The only area that isn't is sort of the north central part of the city. Everything else is within that disadvantaged area. So we can use the funding pretty much in any community or any neighborhood in the city. We would be eligible to do that. They do encourage that we engage the communities and public in this effort. I don't know how much engagement there would be for the community to remove stumps from tree pits, but I think where we're going to try to engage more is when we're actually doing the tree planting itself and possibly get some volunteers or get the community involved with that.
Jim, that's what I was just going to ask you, because last night I went and spoke with Cub Scouts, and they are working towards a conservation badge. And I brought up what we were doing last night as well, and they approached me after it was over and asked if Cub Scouts could volunteer for this.
We could. I mean, we've done that in the past. I know that we did it with the Robert Johnson Center. We did a tree planting up in the Jonathan Street neighborhood. And the way that worked is our contractor delivered the trees and dug the pits, dug the holes for the trees, and then the students actually placed the trees in. So it was a kind of a combination. We have to be a little bit careful because it can be a little bit dangerous. These trees are heavy, and there are certain things that we probably wouldn't want volunteers to do. We'd rather just have our contractor do it. But no, there's certainly an opportunity with the Cub Scouts or really any other group that's interested. We can make that work.
Okay, great. Can you give me info on that, and I could forward it to them?
Right, and it's coming up, it's been so dry and it's been hot, which is not a good time to be planting trees, but we're getting into the fall season, and that's when we want to try to do most of the planting is between now and, say, the end of the year.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Jim. Next up, we have the amendment to the scope of project for Community Development Corporation Tax Sale Acquisition Grant. I think we have Paul Fulk and Margie Joe.
So we're here to propose a recommended change to the scope of work for an existing state community legacy grant. This grant was originally submitted to and approved by the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development for the purpose of acquiring no-bid tax sale properties to eliminate blight and provide an avenue for creating additional housing stock. The original scope of the grant project was intended to provide financial assistance to community development corporations in Hagerstown to act as land banks to acquire and rehabilitate targeted properties for resale, either for homeownership or for quality rental units. In the meantime, legislation easing the process by which the city may acquire no-bid tax sale properties was passed by the state in, I believe, late 2023 or early 2024. And the city identified an initial round of 23 properties for which we have obtained the tax sale certificates, and we're navigating the foreclosure process. We've targeted 7 additional properties for acquisition as well. The majority of these are vacant lots, and those few with structures are not suitable for rehab and would actually require demolition. And as none of the current city-acquired properties are feasible for rehab, in order to utilize the grant funding, staff is proposing an amendment to the scope of the project to permit the city to use the funding for demolition and clearance. The state has permitted us multiple extensions on this grant already due to the lengthy processes involved with the legislation and with acquisition. And our current deadline is now June 30th of 2026. Our preliminary conversations with the state have found them to be agreeable with the idea of changing the scope of the project. So with your approval, we would then submit to the state a formal request for amendment to the scope of the grant project. The motion and the original approved grant agreement are in your packets, and we would be looking for vote at the regular session on September 30th. Are there any questions we can answer?
Anyone?
I don't think there's any questions. I'll just make a statement. And I think that our objective at removing these properties and the blight that everybody can see, and nobody remembers the nice houses on the street, they remember the bad ones, are just as important as the new stuff we build. Good work.
Shame the process has taken so long. The legal process takes a long time. But we're close.
We are.
Very close. Anybody else? Good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have a memorandum of understanding with the Office of the State Fire Marshal. Chief DiBacco.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor and Council. The Hagerstown Fire Department is currently under a memorandum of understanding with the Office of State Fire Marshal for Services. That memorandum of understanding delineates responsibilities of each agency. There's basically four in the current memorandum, and they include things like who's responsible for inspections of properties, who does fire investigations, who collects bills and fees related to those. And we're in year 3.5 of 5 for that MOU. Recently, we've had some changes with the Office of our Fire Marshal with staffing and functions, and we're giving a refocus on our mission there. As part of that, we would like to turn over all fire investigations and explosive investigations to the Office of State Fire Marshal. In the MOU, that would be the only change, and that is the function of doing the fire investigations and the explosive investigations. The Hagerstown Fire Department Fire Marshal Office will retain all other functions, core functions, and missions, and that's the change we're going to request.
So who currently does it?
So currently, we've had a fire prevention office in Hagerstown since the 1960s. And in the 1980s, they changed the name of it from a Fire Prevention Bureau to a Fire Marshal's Office. There were some changes with, in Maryland law with the Maryland Police and Correctional Training Commission. And in the 80s, the Fire Marshal's Office could no longer be covered by the Office of State Fire Marshal, and they became an independent law enforcement agency. So since the 80s, the fire department has handled the investigations. Part of that is that those members have to go through a police academy, a law enforcement academy. Those police academies take anywhere from 6 to 7 months, and our members would go through the Hagerstown Police Academy with the Hagerstown police officers. Over the last several years, through attrition of personnel leaving the office, we've had difficulty filling those investigator positions, basically for lack of interest of members who want to train to be police officers. It is a very demanding police academy. The people who generally would come into investigation work are a little bit older in their career, and it's not very desirable. And so we have shared for in the Office of the State Fire Marshal has responsibility for investigations if the local jurisdiction cannot do it. But for the last couple of years anyways, we have shared the investigation. When we have not had investigators available, the office, the State Fire Marshal would come in and handle the investigation. So currently, up to this point, we have been the primary agency with assistance from the state. And because of the changes in the staffing and the refocus of our mission, we were going to hand the investigations over to the state entirely and then refocus on plans, reviews, and permits, life safety inspections, and community risk reduction. That's community education events, trying to reduce the risk of fire and improving the health and safety of the community. So our request is that we're going to step away from the fire investigation side. Everything else remains with us.
Any other questions, Council?
And that seems like a big part that you're handing off. And it almost seems like what you're saying is we're not going to have a fire marshal's office within the city of Hagerstown.
I would disagree with that assertion. The fire investigation piece is actually a very small portion of the work that they do. Daily, they're doing inspections and plans review. Those are in the nearly 100 plans reviews per month, and daily, they're doing anywhere from 5 to 10 inspections per day. In the past month, we've had probably no more than 3 incidents that required investigators to come in to handle. The investigation side requires, to be a law enforcement investigator requires a minimum 120 hours per year of training, up to 200 hours a year of training, which takes our guys away from their primary mission of fire inspection. And so while it's important work, the volume of the work of an investigator is pretty small compared to the critical nature of the fire inspections that we need.
So you said I'm sorry. You said they go through the same training as the police cadets?
That's correct. They go through the same police academy.
So that kind of gives, once they're done, them the ability to do either one?
Well, they're employees of the fire department, so they function. Now, they do have, as an investigator, and they have law enforcement credentials, they have the same basic abilities as a police officer for arrest, investigation and arrest powers. But they would focus on fire and explosive incidents only. They were not out there doing the typical things that maybe a street police officer would do with traffic stops or domestic violence calls or any other types of calls. They focused on fire-related criminal activity.
I guess I'm asking if it came down to it and they wanted to switch, they kind of could because they already went through the training?
We currently have 3 members who maintain law enforcement credentials. I guess they could cross-transfer over to the police department. I would bet a paycheck that they don't want to leave the fire department. So,
But you've had a hard time getting folks to fill those investigative roles. And like you said, they're older in their career. They don't want to go through the police academy where, you know, a lot of younger kids would probably go through.
yes, sir, that's correct. It is a very challenging academy. And we just had recently, our most recent fire investigator who went through it, I think Brandon is probably close to his late 30s anyways, and he did well, but he will tell you that it was quite the struggle to go through that for an older person. And as we get older, we have families, and that going from the fire department schedule to the police academy Monday through Friday, it's a big demand on your family life as well. So there's a lot of drawbacks. We advertised internally for members who were interested in going twice, and we had 0 responses for members who wanted to go. It's just not an attractive position, and it's hard to maintain.
So I guess my question for you, Chief, is if we were to remove that within the department, how would that impact the community? Like just removing those duties of the investigation side?
Sure, and I don't believe the community would see any impact. They're still going to get the same fire service, the same response. The impact is if there's a need for a fire investigator, that would come from our people being on the scene already and having to request a fire investigator to come from the state. Now, they have regional offices, so we actually have a couple of fire investigators that live in the immediate area, but we also have investigators that serve us. They may have a travel time. The impact would be not on the citizen, but maybe on the firefighters having to wait a little bit to get there, for the investigator to get there. But what the citizen will see is that as we refocus our mission, we're going to increase the amount of community activities that we're able to provide. And I'll just give you a quick example. We have a smoke alarm program where we go out twice a month on Saturdays, and after fires, we go to those neighborhoods and we knock on doors. In the last 6 months, we've knocked on approximately 2,400 doors in the city to check on their smoke alarms in their residents. Of those, we made contact with 843 residents, and we installed 143 new alarms in 6 months. Preventing fires, reducing the risk of somebody who's in a building that's on fire by early notification has a much greater impact than maybe the investigation side. The investigation, I say, it is important, but I think we can make a bigger impact. The other things we're going to refocus on are our public education. We do CPR training, AED training, stop the bleed training. We do portable fire extinguisher training for groups. We have Children's Village out on Mount Etta Road, which has been there since the 80s. Our firefighters are instructors at that location. We also do the school visits, the community events. I think it will just allow us more opportunity to engage the community and add to overall community safety, life safety, fire safety, and their wellness.
Thank you.
Yeah, speaking of Mount Avenue Road, I remember going there when I was in elementary school, at Morgansville Elementary School, about 93, 94, so still there.
Yeah, all second graders in Washington County go to Children's Village. And what we do in Hagerstown, the fire department, we do school visits and we focus on third graders. So the next year we reinforce those messages they got as second graders, and hopefully that carries on with them through their education.
I think what I'm struggling with is maybe just the semantics of the term,
Yes, sir.
Marshal. You know what I mean? Because to me, like that term, I guess as long as I've been here, has always indicated that we have a law enforcement component to our Hagerstown Fire Department. And it sounds like what we're doing is removing that law enforcement component from the Hagerstown Fire Department.
I understand that, sir.
So it's just the word,
The
Marshal.
word,
Like,
the,
it sounds like they'll be doing a lot of what they've been doing. They're just going to have different powers than what they previously had, I guess, as they cycle out.
so our fire marshal, Dale Fishhack, and Deputy Fire Marshal Brandon Higgins, they are both currently law
That's what I'm
enforcement
saying. So
certified.
as they cycle out,
They will maintain their law enforcement credentials.
Right.
It doesn't cost us anything to do that. We are our own agency. So there's no cost involved there. They just will not be exercising their power for investigation, arrest on criminal activity, but they can still use that for criminal code enforcement if that's involved. Also, the state office of fire marshal requires that every municipality have a assistant state fire marshal by title, and that is Dale's position. He is the assistant state fire marshal for the city of Hagerstown, on record with the office of state fire marshal. And finally, I just say Dale also has a explosives trained canine, Ruby, and part of what Dale does with Ruby, that ongoing training, requires him to have access to materials, explosive materials, small amounts of odorants to train the dog. And without him having that law enforcement certification, we'd have to bring somebody from outside in to handle those and have possession of those. So they'll maintain their law enforcement certification. They just won't be exercising in the criminal arson type areas.
Anyone else?
Would the change to this MOU would have to come back to the body to approve?
It will come back for a vote,
Yeah,
and
regular session.
Okay.
I believe Mr. Mayor and the administrator will be signatories on it.
And so the MOU draft will be available for us to review? Okay,
It'll be in the preliminary agenda.
okay.
It's also going to help, I think where the most benefit's going to be seen is in plan review. Right now, plan review takes in a lot of time on the fire side, and due to the volume that we've seen over the last couple of years, that sometimes has created a bottleneck through the fire marshal's office. We used to have Doug DeHaven that was the fire marshal, and then he went part-time, who lived and breathed that stuff. He is now completely retired. So this was just now a good time to try to focus back onto the ability to try to get some of these plans through in a efficient amount of time to keep these projects moving. So this will go a long way to doing that.
Good point. Anyone else? Okay. Thanks, Chief.
Thank you.
Next up, we will start our discussion on youth curfew and youth truancy. I have Chief Kifer coming up, and Councilwoman Burnett might have beginning insight on this, don't you?
Sure.
Well, let me help you.
I got
Sorry.
some stuff to say.
Okay,
No.
okay. Just-
I'll just follow.
we thought it'd be good for Joey to come up.
Yeah.
Because this is definitely something we have talked about before, especially the youth curfew. Looking at it from other areas that have done it. The truancy has kind of been an add-on lately. I know that's kind of one of my little pet peeves when it's the middle of the school day and you see kids that should be in school walking the streets or at the skate park, and that was a topic that was brought up at your last discussion. I think Dr. Sovine is very interested in talking more about that. But I thought Joey giving you his opinion, especially on the curfew, would be valuable. And then before you started your discussion on this.
Well, good evening. So as you know, Chapter 79 in our city code covers curfew of juveniles. And defining a juvenile as any person under, unemancipated person under the age of 17 years of age. And then the times for curfew, based on the chapter, is 10 p.m. on any Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday until 5 a.m. The following day, and then 11 p.m. on any Friday and Saturday until 5 the following day would be the curfew times that would have to be enforced. Penalties for this shall be unlawful. Well, does this cover the parental responsibility? Shall be unlawful for a parent or guardian having legal custody of a juvenile to knowingly permit the juvenile to remain in any public place in violation of this chapter, 79.2-2. The term knowingly includes actual knowledge and knowledge that a parent should reasonably be expected to have concerning the whereabouts of a juvenile in that parent's care and custody. Violations of this ordinance: any juvenile who shall be violated any of the provisions of this chapter may be charged with having committed a misdemeanor, punishable by a fine of not to exceed $500, and be prosecuted in accordance with Maryland law. And then the parental punishment is any individual who violates 79.4, which is the parental responsibility, shall be hereof shall be guilty of a municipal infraction and shall be subject to a fine in the following prepayable amounts. So the first offense is a written warning. Second offense is a fine of $100. Third offense would be a fine of $250, and a fourth or subsequent offense is a fine of $500. So it's a little confusing in the sense that, as you know, with the previous ordinance we brought to your attention, the $500 fine is always there. That's that municipal misdemeanor state minimum, or that you can apply. Again, that's provided by a judiciary side. That's not by us. That's not, we don't set that, and we don't enforce that. It would still be enforced by a court of law. And again, I don't know any judge anywhere that's going to fine a juvenile $500. It just doesn't apply, but it has to be part of the law when you build those things in. So that's the curfew issue. So for us, we utilize the curfew ordinance sparingly and when it's necessary. The reason why is because it's very time consuming. So if I get out with a juvenile at 2 o'clock in the morning, we have to identify who the juvenile is, identify who the parents are, try to find the parents. Once we have control of that juvenile, they are at our control until we can release them to someone to keep from violating the curfew. And what we found in some instances where we've had youth that won't talk to us, won't tell us who their parents are, won't give us phone numbers, won't do anything, we don't maybe know who they are, we wind up sitting with them for a very long period of time. And that was when we first started doing this years and years ago. Societal-wise, that's gotten even worse. Trying to find parents to come in and pick their kids up. A lot of times parents won't even show up to pick their kids up. And so when I say we use it sparingly, when we have certain youth that we are constantly having problems with, then we will enforce this ordinance. But to come across every kid that's out past 10 o'clock during the week or after 11 o'clock is just not feasibly able to do that. We could do that, but it would require a civilian staff or a civilian team. That would be the person we would drop them off to at our building that would maintain and work that back end stuff. So the officer could get back out on the street. And with the juvenile laws changing, this would not apply to any youth under the age of 14. I mean, we would still enforce the ordinance and bring them into our custody and turn them over, but they would not be charged with a violation of the ordinance because they cannot be under Maryland law. So some of these things have changed a little bit. And honestly, we've talked about this in-house, the whole penalty phase for the parents. We think, having a warning and going through 3 steps to get to a maximum kind of fine opportunity, which charging a youth with that maximum fine opportunity didn't make much sense. We think we would encourage you guys, if you're going to make an amendment to that, just make that the violation is $500, just like any other ordinance would be for the parents. We believe more than likely, if you're going to make any changes to this, holding the parents accountable with that kind of oversight is probably going to have more impact than the kids themselves, because that's where that change is going to happen. There's a lack of parenting that's causing a lot of these kids to be out there. Not all of them. Kids are going to be kids and doing things, but the ones that are repeatedly causing the problems is a lack of parenting that's happening there. So holding the parents accountable in some ways is where we should go. And I'll add one thing that's not really part of this ordinance that we've been talking about as well, is finding a way to hold parents accountable or guardians accountable for other crimes committed by the youth in their custody. When I say holding them accountable, civil liability, having some kind of civil litigation, whether it's by if the city can participate in some way, shape, or form and take that role on and filing suit against the parents for allowing their children to go out and commit crimes, or encouraging and finding a mechanism that we can get the victims of those said crimes, whether it's property crime or whatever that is, to be able to sue those parents in court. A lot of times people won't do that. They don't understand the civil system, so they shy away from that. So we've been talking and trying to figure out a way to maybe navigate that as a city function on behalf of some of the victims in our community, just to kind of, again, enough's enough. We're not going to allow this to happen, and we're holding people accountable. And in this case, mostly with youth, I think holding the parents accountable is where we really need to go.
14 to 17, right?
Yes.
At 11 p.m.
11 p.m. on the weekends, 10 p.m. during a weekday.
Okay.
So it's 10 p.m. Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday until 5 a.m. the next day. So then Friday and Saturdays is 11 p.m. until 5 a.m. the following day.
Well, for me, I thought it was important to bring this ordinance, Chapter 79, back to the table for, one, awareness. This ordinance was adopted in 2003. So for me, this was before I was even a parent. So for those out there, yes, there's a curfew in the city of Hagerstown. And also for safety reasons. We are aware of some incidents that has happened over the summer where there were parties involving many minors, shootings. And I'm of age where I remember the commercials that said, do you know where your kids are, or something like that. And when that incident happened, and not just the only incident, it made me wonder, like, if other parents are aware that their kids should be home. And I think the ordinance is solid with the timing, as far as 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, 11 p.m. on the weekends. I think that's really solid, pretty fair. But this ordinance also has exceptions. So the ordinance talks about if the juvenile is with the parent, they're okay. If they're attending any events, that's okay. It's more so geared to the activities that happen at the very late hours where children should not be on the streets. Children should not be at these parties. And there's some times where parents don't even know that their kids are out. But I think that having an awareness that there is a curfew in place is for the safety of our minors, our kids that could be exposed to some very significant events that could lead them to trauma because they're outside too late. They're around some adults they shouldn't be. So I think the ordinance in itself is pretty solid. I would agree, Chief, about the violations or penalties of setting a $500 straight fine to hold parents accountable. But I also want to mention that in the ordinance, I don't see in 79-5 of what entity would enforce the violations portions. Like, you know, if it is truly HPD, I would like to see that type of verbiage in the ordinance to
Well,
state that.
what we do is we charge, like for the youth, we do, when we say we charge, the way the juvenile system works is we notify juvenile services that there's a violation of a crime, whatever that crime might be, and this youth is involved in that. Juvenile services then takes that. It's run by juvenile services for any penalties that go for the juvenile. We don't manage that part of it. When it comes to the municipal infraction, that's the adults, there's a citation that's issued, a municipal infraction document that's given to that parent, and then there's a court date that they go to for court. And then the court manages that penalty part of that.
So with 79-5, thank you for that. What way it's written, is this clear? The
Yes.
show the responsibility.
Yes.
Okay, so juvenile services would be involved, and that's with Maryland law verbiage here.
That's the Maryland law part of
Okay.
it, that goes through juvenile services and the processes that allow for youth to be disciplined through the legal systems through juvenile services.
Okay. So again, we have a curfew, and I think that this should be enforced more because of the reoccurrence of these situations where kids are outside and they're getting hurt.
I'm not disagreeing with you. That's what I say. We're trying to figure out a way to navigate that doesn't have unintended consequences of taking men and women of our department off the street. Because you're talking this occurring at, say, 11 o'clock or beyond. That's when I have the least amount of staff working at the department. So during the day, we've got, downtown squads working, we've got CID guys working, we've got other people working. But you get in those later evenings and you just have those shifts that are working. So you could have, 6 or 7 guys working instead of having 15 or 20 guys working during the day. So it's taxing. So we're going to figure out how to navigate that. I agree with you. We're going to figure it out. And there might be some options for us to look future down the road, like I said, come up with a civilian team that can be a handoff, that we can bring them to the building and say, okay, I'm charging you with this as a youth. And now the civilian team works on trying to find the parents and doing all that while they're at the building. So my guys can get back out on the street and do the job they're doing. But again, that's going to be, it's a budgetary issue. It's something that's not for this discussion here today. But that's someplace we would like to look. Talking to my staff, yes, it's clear in terms of the times on the ordinance. It's still confusing to some that you have certain days it's one time, and other days it's other. We would suggest we just clarify it as one time for every day. Make it maybe 11 o'clock every day, 11 to 5, no matter what day of the week. That would make it simple and clean for everybody to understand that ordinance and make it, and that everybody knows what that's about. And again, changing the violation penalties for the adults.
Until 5, like 11 p.m. till 5
5
a.m.
a.m. Yeah.
every day.
And to your point, and I didn't read this part, but I wanted to clarify this as well. The exceptions are very clear. If you're with your parent, you could be out at any hour of the day as long as you're with your parent or your guardian. If you're returning home, direct route from a city event, school activity, religious or civic organization, or some kind of public entertainment. If you're coming from the ball game, you're coming from Meredith Park, and it's a late game or something, and you're going home. That would
Kids
justify
walk home
that.
from football games.
Yes.
That kind of thing.
If they're engaged in any kind of legal employment, if they're working and they're going home, because if you're 16 or you're going home, you might be working late. If you have the consent of the parent or is engaged in interstate travel through the city, that they're moving through the city, we've got an exception for that. If they're on their own property, that's not a violation. So as long as they're at the property where they reside, that's not a violation. If they're staying outside their front on the sidewalk, that wouldn't be considered a violation. Or if they're exercising their First Amendment rights as protected under the Constitution, those are the exceptions to the curfew.
And we're not the only city that has a youth curfew.
No, this was mirrored after others.
Right.
It's a best practice kind of curfew.
And we're not, having this ordinance since 2003 is not trying to tell you how to raise your kids, right? But when there are situations that involve really unsafe conditions, we get the emails, we get the feedback. What is the city doing about this? And I think that since 2003, the city has been doing such, but I think that today, in 2025, we could do a little bit more with awareness, telling the parents, your kids need to be home by 11 o'clock. And that, again, is pretty reasonable to me.
I think so too.
Yeah.
I would like this because mine was dusk when I was younger, but can you, just so we, everybody that's listening or watching, 100% go over a step that's, if you would come across somebody that is past the curfew, can you explain exactly how the process will go so they understand?
Sure. Well, it could vary a little bit, but I'll take the least intrusive kind. Say we're at Fairgrounds Park, at the skate park, and it's 12 o'clock at night, and there's activity going on there that causes us to show up there. And we
And
find
the park is technically closed.
the park's closed. But we show up and there's kids there. And let's say they're over 14 years old, so that would apply to this, or if they're under 14. A lot of times we would get out with them. We would then start to gather their information. Hey, you're not supposed to be out. What are you doing out here? There's a curfew. Obviously, the park violation of being there after dark would be another violation. But from the curfew side, we'd be asking those questions. And then we would attempt to try to call the parents to come pick them up there if possible. That would be the first step. If we're not getting any kind of cooperation from the youth, then they would be transported back to our police department where we have better control of the situation. We're not just hanging out there where they could take off running or other situations. And at that same point, we're still going to hold on to them and do everything we can to try to find their parent or their guardian or get in contact with them so that they would come, again, respond there to get them. We would transport them home if it was quicker for us to do, and we could do that. We've done that in the past as well. And in those rare occasions where we just cannot find someone or the kid's just not cooperating and telling us anything, we don't know who the kid is, then we would contact juvenile services at that point and start that process with them.
So they don't have the opportunity, like, if you do see them out, it's past curfew, and what are you doing out? They don't have the opportunity to say, I'll go home. Like, by that point, it's already like.
No, they could.
Okay,
But
so
yeah,
they
that's what I'm
can tell
saying.
you, I'll go home.
Yeah, again, we're looking for voluntary compliance.
Okay.
Again, if it's a normal situation where there's not really anything going on, there's just kids at the park. They're not doing, they're not harming the park. They're not causing destruction. We just got a call. There's a group of people there, and some of those are kids. We would notify them, hey, where's home? We may call parents and say, hey, your kid's on their way home. They live 2 blocks away. We give them that opportunity. Again, we're looking for voluntary compliance. Again, we would enforce this on those moments when we know we have to, and we know when they are. We know when those situations come up where we're having a young male or female that's just not. They're out for no good. They're not doing something just because they're being kids out past curfew. They're up to no good. And in those kids' situations, we're going to try to detain them and get the parents to come pick them up to make that notification. Again, we may not even charge them. I mean, that's not saying we would charge every single time. We have that option of not doing that. But again, we know some of the kids that we've had to do this with that have just been repeat offenders on various things. So yes, we're going to use the curfew to our advantage in that sense, try to get additional things, get them into a system to get that compliance that they're not giving voluntarily. Just like we would for an adult.
I think also, you did say Dr. Savant does want to talk to the chief about this, right? Because I think it's very important for all the schools, and especially since it's just this age, you're only really referring to the high school kids for the most part. And if you get something in the school to where they hear it firsthand from the school system, it stays in their head. But I don't know if the high school still get something sent home in their book bags. I know that but even if they hear it, whether it's over the intercom or if they get that slip of paper, like, don't forget, it's curfew. Oh, it's Friday, curfew is at this over the weekend, or even if you guys are posting it on your Facebook, page, because parents are really reading that.
Yeah.
So if they hear it and they're able to read it firsthand, it
Yeah,
kind of
more than
sticks
happy
in
to
their
do.
head.
Yep, more than happy to do the education component of that. The truancy part is a little more difficult, and the reason why is because of homeschooling. And schooling doesn't have hours to it, so, so that makes it a little difficult for us. But they have truancy officers at work, not police officers, but school staff that should be out doing a lot more of that, than us, but
Question.
that's just another.
So if
thing.
you're seeing, because, I mean, we are riding through town at 11 o'clock and we see a child out, how are you how do you guys handle that?
At nighttime?
No, like
During the day?
During the day, where school's in session?
Honestly, we're not probably doing anything unless we get a call or something that's drawing our attention other than there's a child there.
Okay.
But it's just not enough. I don't have enough manpower to be tracking them down and find out why you're not in school.
But that would be the truancy part of it,
Truancy
correct?
part of the school's truancy, they're looking for kids that aren't coming to school. They should be the ones trying to figure out if they're out. They will ask our school resource officers to help them with that. If they have children that aren't coming to school, our resource officers will drive to the parent's home, knock on the door and find out why their kids aren't coming in. But that's a collective thing where they do it collaboratively, but that's coming from the school driving that, not us
And
driving.
most of those will be names that they're familiar with anyway,
Yes,
for the most part.
yeah.
And the
Yeah.
truancy part of it is obviously all age. It's not just gonna
Right,
be that
right.
particular age that you're looking for.
And there's penalties, and again, we don't deal with it, but there's penalties where parents can be charged with not sending their children to school. I don't know what those penalties are, but they're pretty significant if I remember right. So,
I think that's good. I think that's a good idea that she brought up, though, is announce it in the schools. Sure. To put the fear in them in school. So, because 14, 17-year-olds aren't listening to us right now, so.
I can get with Steve Ganley and Tom Kelly that work security, they're the directors of security for that, and see if we can coordinate with them to get with the schools to put something out for the city location schools. Because they're only applies to the city boundaries.
So, if I understand it correctly, this ordinance that we currently have in effect applies to youth between the ages of 14 and 17.
That can be charged. That can be charged with in violation of the ordinance.
Right.
It applies to every youth. We would still, if I came across a 12-year-old, 11-year-old, we would still treat them the same way. They just wouldn't get a charge. Paperwork wouldn't go to juvenile services for it because they
Okay.
couldn't be charged with it.
So here's what I'm trying to figure out.
We would still maintain, and the parents could be charged. The parents could still be found in
I
violation.
guess that's what I want to make clear is that there isn't this gap, right? Because I think that you're required, that's the wrong way to say it. I think that a child is not allowed to be at home in the state of Maryland under the age of 10, right?
Yes.
I think it's at
And you
age
can't-
10, you're allowed.
And at the age
To be
of 12, you
unsupervised,
can,
yeah.
at the age of 12, you can be with another child in your household that's a younger, but you have to be at least
Right.
12. And it has to be someone within
Right.
your household.
All I'm saying is I want to make sure that there isn't this gap between the age of 10 and 13 that the rule doesn't apply to.
And the rule's the same. Rule's the same, just the child can't be charged with a crime. That's all.
Okay.
That's all. Can't be charged with the ordinance.
But the parent can be held responsible.
Exactly the same as everybody else.
If they're under the age of 14.
Yes,
It's just the child won't be held responsible.
that's right.
Okay.
Child
I'm
under
good.
In the legal system.
under 8 cannot be left unattended in Maryland.
So Chief, do we need to make that clarification in the ordinance? Because I don't see the 14.
You don't need to. No, that's more of a state procedural thing. The
So
ordinance
that's the
still,
state part that
the
you were
ordinance,
talking about
any
earlier.
child under the age of 17 cannot violate this ordinance. It's just, do we send paperwork to juvenile
Yeah, but-
services for a child under the age of 14?
But the,
That's the only difference. We would still bring that child to the building if they didn't cooperate. We would still maintain trying to get their parents. We'd still turn them over to juvenile services if we didn't have any information and they would work with that. But
Yeah,
the parents would still be charged with a violation of that.
I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out is in the ordinance, what I hear you saying is in the ordinance, there's a penalty. And the penalty applies to youth between the ages of 14 and 17.
That's correct. The penalty, right?
Okay. Does the penalty also apply to the parents in this ordinance?
Yes.
So
No matter what age,
So
as
the
long as it's 17 or
parent would be
under.
the subject individual to the penalty associated with youth under the age of 14.
That's correct.
And
Yes.
then under the age of 8, there's additional more serious
State.
implications.
Yeah, that's DSS
Okay,
rules.
so
That's
from,
DSS.
so from 9 to 13, the parent's gonna pay the price.
Right.
Even younger, they would still
Even
pay.
younger.
I know, but I'm saying, but there's the gap. The gap's 9 to 13. From 9 to 13, the parent pays the local, the city code, cost.
Yeah.
And in addition, 14 to 17, the parent and the child
Parent
pay
and
the
child.
cost.
Yes.
Okay, just to make sure I'm clear.
Which is why I think it'd be a good idea to at least clarify
funds.
that in the ordinance, so it's clear.
make clear.
So you don't have to like figure out that
No, I think that, I bring it to your attention here because it doesn't impact the community, it doesn't impact the parents. If you have a child under the age of 17, they cannot violate curfew, period. End of story.
Somebody
You can be,
pays the
you could be held responsible in violation of this
Okay.
ordinance if you're that parent. You
Okay.
could be. It's up to, let us deal with which youth can be, because that could change.
I
And
know,
we made
but
a change
in
now,
the beginning was.
Right.
because 2 years ago, that
14
age
and
was,
up.
was younger. They've changed it in the legislation, so they could change it again, and we don't want to be changing this ordinance multiple times to
Okay.
meet that goal. We know what that rule is. That's a
Okay,
procedural
as long as
rule
it says
from the state.
in ordinance with Maryland law.
That's right. Yes.
So we're covered with.
We're covered with that
The
on the
age
youth- on the
changes
youth
if it
side.
does. Got it. Okay.
And Maryland law, just for what it's worth, a child under 8 cannot be left unattended. Children 8 to 10 can be left alone for short periods of time during daylight, up to an hour and a half.
Right.
Children 11 and 12 can be unsupervised for up to 3 hours, but not late at night. Children aged 13 and older can be left alone for any duration, but not overnight. Those are
And then
guidelines.
if you're 13, you're
This
allowed
is
to
a
be there with the.
guideline.
That's what I was going
Right.
to say.
13, you're allowed to be there with the sibling
That's right,
without, yeah.
right.
And not every kid we would come across, if we have a problem child that's out of, but the parents are doing everything, and we know the parents are doing everything they can to try
Right.
to, we wouldn't charge that parent. That wouldn't be right for us to do that. There are some kids that are just gonna be problematic in that and cause their parents problem. As long as the parents are cooperating, they're doing everything they can, we wouldn't charge them with that. But the child would be if they're in that age range where we could. You know, I'm saying we wouldn't, it gives us the ability to not do that just because, hey, your kid snuck out of the house. And they come in and they take all the right steps to deal with that, then there wouldn't be any reason to charge them. If they're taking steps, working with DSS or working with other agencies to try to get that help, that wouldn't be something we'd want to get a penalty and not necessarily. I'm not saying we wouldn't, but those are the things we look at. So it's not an absolute, none of these ordinances and enforcing are absolutes. It's case by case, situation by situation. These are what we could do, and in some cases, it's what you're gonna do. And with a lot of the kids we're talking about here that you guys are concerned about, these would be enforced. But there's a lot of kids out there that aren't really doing anything wrong, just out past curfew, that we would, you need to go home.
So I guess I just want to make sure I understand that 14 to 17, you said you're charging them and the parent.
Could charge both, yes.
According to Maryland law.
Under this ordinance, under Maryland law, we could charge both.
But technically, it would just be the parent paying a double fine?
That could be, yes.
Because I
Could
can't
be.
see the child paying.
Going back to that responsibility piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But HPD is willing to work with them if the parent is like,
But again, I don't
But with
know.
the
But if they're really
you
extreme, they wouldn't can't
Yeah.
charge you.
And you just have a lot of situations where the parent works at night, single family, or it's a single mother, single father, work late at night. What are they gonna do? They don't have anyone else. That's when you,
Kids might just be out doing some just
Yeah.
goofy kid
it
stuff at
becomes a
night.
case management type of situation at that
But
point.
the key is awareness.
The key is awareness.
Awareness. Right.
I didn't know, right? And I got a 14-year-old. So I will be going back home, having a conversation with my 14-year-old daughter and say, hey, don't be outside.
And please, this is not, I don't want the headline to be City of Hagerstown institutes youth curfew due to whatever. That is not, this has been on the books for a long, long time.
And we're reviewing a lot of these ordinances that we're in the process.
Right. And that's what you all have wanted to do, and that's why we're bringing them to you.
As far as amending, do we agree to amending section 2 to the 11 p.m. across the board for every day, and then the violation to a $500 fine instead of the tiered warning, $100, $250, $500. Just so we're clear. Is everybody
Yeah, I'd
okay with that?
I would for the 500
Yeah,
minimum.
Would you say warning, 100, 250, and 5, right?
It would just it would just be a $500 fine,
$500.
possible $500 fine, just like you would have.
After a warning though, right?
Yeah, yeah, we're
A
not-
warning
They
first.
could- I mean, if
and
you-
then-
Unless, yeah.
Yeah,
If
well,
they're uncooperative.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
first warning and then second, third.
but I don't need you to put a warning in,
Second, third,
you don't need to put a
$500.
warning in here. If you just
Yeah,
put
warning in there.
that can, just like any other ordinance, the maximum penalty for
Doesn't have to
violating
be
this
that-
could be
that's
$500.
a-
So if we
yeah.
charge you,
Pass go card.
yeah,
there.
if you got charged, then that's the penalty you would get, would be up to a $500 fine.
And then last time this was amended in 2014. So it's, again,
Yeah.
it's worth revisiting our ordinances for today's world,
That's good.
so.
And I think 11 o'clock fits in our world today because our world's a little later and ongoing, a lot more mobile, 24/7 than it was back in 2003.
Yes, I was in high school back in 2003. Junior in high school, so.
Can we do that for next week and amend the ordinance and,
Yeah.
have it part of preliminary agenda for next week? Is
I'll just get what Don and Ish can get with me tomorrow.
Okay.
We'll get it,
that good for you all?
Yes.
get it on the agenda.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Thank
All right, well, thank you.
We'll stick around.
I'm still here.
Later.
All the notes I'm making here, I almost didn't see what the next thing is on the agenda.
Yeah, fill it
Yeah, next up is recovery residence regulations. Amanda Gregg and Paul Fall.
Yeah, everything they recommend.
Oh, yeah.
Good evening, afternoon.
Not that we haven't done any work on this.
So,
You guys off?
yeah. So we did some research on these things on trying to, we talk about recovery residences and, I want to be clear that this is just looking at the gaps in the state law. It is not trying to look at any other types of these types of facilities other than just the gap in the state law that occurs right now. So basically, Maryland law, they started talking about this, in 2011 and ended up passing the regulation to license behavioral health treatment care and rehabilitation services in 2016. So what those are basically group homes, halfway houses, outpatient treatment programs, mobile treatment services, withdrawal management, and opioid treatment. And they came up with certain regulations that these types of facilities had to follow. They say they have to follow some local sanitation, building, fire, and zoning code requirements, but I'll be honest, though, it's very limited on what they actually have to follow. The most recent state law amended in 2025 mandating that these types of facilities have licenses. So state law did mandate them for all of those ones that I just listed. And there are penalties associated with these where you could have up to $15,000 in a month if you were that type of facility. Sometimes the questions, group homes and halfway houses. Basically, a halfway house is a type of group home. So when I use the term group home, it's kind of grouping in the halfway house too. Sometimes they're used interchangeably. Just so that everyone knows that, a small group home is a private group home that admits at least 4, but not more than 9 individuals. And a large group home is a private group home that admits at least 10, but not more than 16 individuals. This is the same definition in our land management code. So nothing's really changed there from what is in the state law and what's in our local ordinances as well. So those are mirror each other. The only difference is the term private in the state law. So private is used because these facilities by state definition don't include the facilities that are owned and leased by any state or public agency. So that term is not used for them. Also, a group home definition doesn't include facilities regulated by the Department of Juvenile Services or Departmental Disability Administration. So those are not included in the licensing program. And additionally, any facility that is organized wholly and partly to make a profit, which is interesting on that one, is not required to be licensed. So someone that one makes a profit is not required to have a license. And then foster homes are not required as well. So where are group homes, permitted in Hagerstown? Pretty much everywhere. I mean, you can have a group home pretty much anywhere in Hagerstown here. There are several districts permit them. If you get into the large group homes, that's when it gets into when the structure was built or the size of the structure, what type of structure it was, that kind of starts narrowing down where it can go. But in general, they can almost go anywhere in Hagerstown. So I talked about group homes and halfway houses because, a lot of times we kind of use terms interchangeably, but really the discussion is going to be on recovery residences and sober living homes. Basically, those terms are used interchangeably. Recovery residences is pretty much the standard basic term. Sometimes people just say a sober living home, but that is a recovery residence. So I'll probably refer to it as recovery residences just for our purposes. By the state law, those are ones that provide alcohol-free and illicit drug-free housing to individuals with substance-related disorders or active disorders or co-occurring mental disorders and substance-related disorders or addictive disorders, and does not include clinical treatment services. So basically, it's a place for people to live where they're not receiving any type of treatment. It's just a home for someone to live in. Recovery residences are specifically exempted by the state law for the license requirements. So it specifically says them in the state law they're not to be part of this license program. Maryland does have a certification program for recovery residences, but it's voluntary. It's not required. It's not a mandated.
But don't they have
type
to be to
thing.
get MCOR funding? You have to be
Correct.
certified to get state funding.
Correct. There is certain things that you have to. So if you want to receive any type of state funding, that's for some sort of transportation assistance or whether or not it's employment support, case management, that type of a stuff. You have to be certified to do that. And there are 4 levels of the certification that's within the state. And then once they're certified, they can advertise that as a certified place. And then also by state law, it's always interesting that it says that they can inform their investors that they're certified. But the interesting thing about that is they have this voluntary certification program for recovery residences in the state. But if you want to receive state grants, not state funds, but state grants, if you want to receive a state grant, you have to be certified with the National Alliance of Recovery Residences, not Maryland certification to get state grants. That's where that felt like that was a disconnect in the state law there, because that's written right out of state law. I'm just providing what the things that are written in state law. So what are some of the challenges that our department has seen, and also the permits office has seen with these recovery residences in Hagerstown, is that that they're being established inside of properties that they're doing a lot of unpermitted work and overcrowding. That they're putting bedrooms in attics or basements that aren't for bedrooms, for people to be, like, if the fire department showed up, they wouldn't know that maybe someone was in one of those locations. So beds are being thrown in any location because, recovery residences can charge per bed, per week, per month, whatever they want to do for any particular rate. And a lot of times we're seeing double the amount of people that should be inside of a residence that the recovery residence is being at. So, if some of those things are, how can we address that? That's where I think the bigger concern is that from the council here and our citizens, is that how can we address these recovery residences in Hagerstown? We always have to respect the different things for fair housing and ADA type requirements, because all of these recovery residences fall underneath fair housing and American Disability Act. They all fall underneath those because, legal statutes in front of it completely says that they are individuals that fall underneath those categories. So we have to take that into respect. There are options that we could come up with. The city could decide to come up with their own licensing program if we wanted to for recovery residences, establishing, do they have to be certified to be able to come licensed locally, or that there are some inspection standards that they have to go by. That's something we could certainly do. Another option is that saying that they should just be part of the rental licensing program as it exists right now. We do license group homes in the rental facilities program. We've done that from the very beginning. They've always been part of the rental facilities ordinance. But recovery residences are something that's want to say more recent, that we haven't really, gotten clear direction on, do we just add them to the rental program? There's already inspection standards for those, and it addresses the overcrowding issues during those time periods, because we always determine the occupant load for a structure when doing those. And then also we can identify any work that needs to obtain a permit. Or the third thing that we can always do is just by saying, we just do what we've been doing now. As we come across them, we make people get permits for any work that they've done. I'll be honest, as we do come across them now, and it's a lot of unpermitted work, people just end up selling the properties and going somewhere else. They don't want to go through all of the steps to really get the proper permits for the work they perform.
And I think there's also some shady business practices going on where some of these places will get state funding and then solicit for other local funding from a nonprofit or whatever. And then when that state funding runs out, they kick the resident out and then get another one in so that they can start double, triple dipping again. I think that is also somewhat an issue, not only here, but everywhere, but definitely here.
And I like to go on with Scott's thing. Our biggest thing is these residents are vulnerable to these types of situations because they're put in the most difficult situation trying to acclimate themselves back into an environment that is conducive for their recovery. And then now they are put in a situation where they may be living in a basement or an attic or something along those lines, and it might not be the most conducive to their recovery. So we're just looking for some direction on where we might want to go with this.
How many?
We're all going to say.
Everyone together, how many
How many?
recovery residents
Yes,
live in the
that's
city?
exactly what I was
We don't
gonna
know.
I do not know.
No idea.
Because they're not, there's no requirement to register or to certify.
So the certification that they have, that how many are certified in Washington County right now, because they don't list the addresses, there are 3.
3?
Yes.
That's all that's registered.
Yes,
But we know there's more.
I am sure there are more than that.
I mean, in my opinion, I feel like the majority of the staff in the home should have some kind of certification. I just feel like you're doing a disjustice if no one's there to really fully be able to help them.
Generally, there aren't staff at those locations. You may have a recovery residence that may have a person that lives on site to give general oversight to that, but it is just a home for people to live in while they may be seeking outpatient treatment at some other facility somewhere
Oh,
else.
so that's why you're just saying it can just be a home, couple bedrooms, and you get, you come home and from, whether if you're incarcerated and you're just able to just live in the.
So, yeah, I don't know what their previous stuff is, but it's a way for them to reacclimate into the working or living environment in the community. So they may be still seeking outpatient treatment during that time period. They may be working somewhere and they just need a home to stay in until they get more established to maybe have a whole entire rental unit for themselves.
And if we were to take on a licensing or certification program, what would that look like from a staffing level?
Well, I would say that if we would just look at, like, we would want someone to be certified, so you can mandate it through a local license that you would say, okay, you must be certified with the state for something along those lines, like, and then we would get the certification, and then they would have an application associated with the city.
But to like enforce that, like if that were the plan, right? Like, do we have the manpower to make sure that certification is obtained?
So it would all be in the thing of, then they can't be licensed, they can't operate in the city. It's the
Gotcha.
same thing with any other, rental facility or donation bin or anything else that we have. If they do not have a license in place, then they're not permitted in. If they don't choose to get a license and still operate, they'd be subjected to fines for failure to comply.
So let me ask you, if that were to go into full effect, would that cause like an automatic shutdown? Would they have a time frame to obtain the license? So therefore, they wouldn't be closing,
Right,
towards
we
them.
would
Right.
not want that there on it. It's the same thing when we condemn a property, unless it's an immediate life safety, fire hazard type of stuff. Generally, we give people time before we actually say, no, you can't be here anymore. So the same thing would go with those things. There's generally warnings within the rental facilities program. There's 30 and 60-day marks before it would look for closing down one of those for failure to comply.
Okay.
If there's only 3 in Washington County, then how are we going to go about finding out these to be able to do that?
Neighbors, a lot of people couple of
Right.
complaints.
There'd be reports that we receive, a lot of residents at a particular location, which generally alerts us to it. And there are other means that we can utilize through the state databases to try to track things
Good,
down.
I hope we would be strict on that, and, yeah. The other question I have, if we went the rental unit route, they're subject to rental inspection now, right?
Correct.
Okay, how often?
So that would be at the discretion of the council if we want to add them to it. Right now, so that's where we fall into these different categories, where rental facilities ordinance now, we do an inspection at every tenant turnover. But if you're in a recovery residence, you will never really have a full turnover of the particular property. So you can look at it as like a rooming house where we do an inspection once every 4 years. So we had one rooming house today actually reached out, which was surprising. They reached out to us versus us reaching out to them saying they're past their 4-year anniversary. They won their inspection. So you can always do it that frequently, or it could be established however that you would want, because like for the hotels, if it's a tier 2 hotel, we do it every year.
That's what I was gonna ask you, if we could, if it's 4 years, can we establish it sooner?
We can do anything we want, and
Okay.
then we can add that in there.
I mean, just in my personal opinion, I would separate the two. I would maybe not include, recovery residences under the rental unit umbrella. Kind of like the way you have it worded in option 1. I do see the need for the inspection standards for those homes, not just for the number of occupants, but for like the living structural being of the place that they're staying in. That's like really important.
Said a lot of them are repurposing it that are not bedrooms and things like that, trying to get away with it.
Or they're not really livable,
Yeah.
especially with someone that's dealing with recovery. They're just thrown into a room that's not.
Well, they're basically taking empty buildings and
Right.
turning them into this purpose, which could be 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, but making them into 6, 7 that are not legal.
Right.
And which is why inspections would be.
For an
Yeah.
example, we had a 3-bedroom duplex that had 13 beds in it when we came across it. They were in the attic and in the basement and all over the place.
Yeah, I think that you need to do both option 1 and option 2.
Kind of define it and
Here's the problem. So if you don't do one or the other, if you don't do the certification process, then individual independent entities are to continue to pop up and operate the way that they've popped up and operated within the community core over time. If you're not certifying it, then you're not addressing the front end, which is the operator. And if you don't do the backside, which is just the same as we do as a rental registration, and I've said this for 20-some years since we passed that ordinance, that's to protect the resident, the person that lives in the space. And to me, if you're not inspecting that space once every 24 months because of the level of turnover, then I think you do open yourself up to that probability that it's not going to be kept in a manner that is in the best interest of those individuals. That, that's their only place they have to live. I just think that doing both addresses both sides of the coin of the issue you're trying to address, and assures the neighborhood, that livable space is going to be, just as well addressed as the other livable spaces within the neighborhood. That's my opinion.
I agree. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you mentioned, it's a very vulnerable community, and we should do our best as local governance on making sure they're at least safe. Safe, and the certification portion will go to little bit more oversight of the operational part of it. Because, it's heartbreaking to hear what some of these people go through and then trying to get themselves back into society, and they're treated such a way where you're cramming them in these attics and these basements and still not giving them the needs in order for them to better themselves. Again, where we can locally, until we get the state on board, right? Because we just had a legislation conversation last week. We're letting our delegation know that this is a topic for us. So where we can, where the state has a gap, we can address that here locally, right? So.
Correct. And my only concern with reviewing all of these things is that there are inspection standards that they have, but I'll be honest, the inspection standards as far as related to the safety of the occupants is only one checklist item, and is, do they have an egress plan posted at the building? That's what they go off of. There are no other things. They're saying that, the person is safe to rescue out of the property when in event of a fire, that can someone exit to remove them, or is there smoke detectors in those locations like the chief just mentioned about? That's one of the most, safety things to have inside of the place. So there's nothing that really kind of regulates that. It's more on the program or the facility itself of like how they can get treatment and different other things to keep them in the recovery process.
That point was what the gentleman from last year mentioned, that the city of Frederick is doing, is that safety piece of having a bunch of people in a building without enough smoke detectors, enough windows and exit, that warned us that we should take a look to Hagerstown and what's happening here, so.
Why is that there's no actual protocol with standards like that?
It's what the state passed. I can't speak for that legislation.
Is it any different if they were certified with the state or national programs? Or
That is with the certification.
that is with the certification?
Could we explore combining option 1 and 2?
Certainly.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
think
yeah,
that
we're
would be a good
one and
approach.
two.
Yeah.
No, not a problem. I can certainly look into it. I can look in Fredericks and see what they have done potentially in the last year. So something we can
Send it
review.
down to the lobbyists today to do research on current law versus what they do. So.
Thank you. All right.
Anybody else? All right. Well, you guys are staying here. Property management licensing. Let's hear this one.
Okay.
All right. Yeah, so I was like, I'm bored and I need to talk a lot tonight, so.
Before you get into this one,
Yes, sir.
I guess I read the memo in the general context that until the state moves on this issue, there isn't a lot of ability for us to move.
Correct, because,
Okay.
so do you want me to go through it all or kind of touch
Yeah,
on that at the end? Okay.
You're welcome to go through it all. It's just, you get to the last paragraph and you're
Right.
like, but until the state does something,
You're-
there's nothing you can do.
You're entirely correct, and it's a lot on manpower locally type of a thing. So just to kind of put it out there for everyone on that, so property management licensing, that when researching this, there are 40 states across the United States there that require a property manager to be licensed as a real estate broker. And then you have 4 states and the District of Columbia that require them to have a property manager license. Then that leaves you 6 states that don't have any requirements, and Maryland is one of those 6 states. So when you have frustrations that you've heard about property managers and this, that, and the other, there's no regulatory entity really to make sure you have qualified individuals that are managing properties. That you have the Maryland Real Estate Commission, and like I mentioned, they license, brokers, associate brokers, and salespeople, or salespersons, but they do have a CEU requirement. That was something that was recently passed within the state, that they need to have CEUs, and 15 hours is what they're required to gain during that 2-year time period. 1.5 of them is on fair housing laws, and 3 of them are on property management, landlord, and tenant laws. So I was quite impressed when I read that. I was like, oh, that's great that they're really educating the real estate real estate brokers on that level. Then they have the Maryland Realtors Association, which you must be a real estate broker to actually be a member of. And they offer a Maryland residential property management certification. And it was interesting because on their website, they said that, some real estate licensed realtors venture into property management without the foundational knowledge required to be successful. So I thought that was interesting of why they created their own certification program. But again, that's only for licensed real estate brokers in the state of Maryland that are a member of the Maryland Realtor Association. So you really start to narrow down the group of who actually has it. There are some national management, property management certifications that are out there. There are two entities. You have the National Property Management Association, and then also the National Association of Residential Property Managers. They offer multiple types of certifications within their organizations. To be a licensed or certified property manager, there are some membership fees associated with them and certification fees as well. And so, as you mentioned last week, we had the local delegation here that was speaking to the council on some of the stuff, and you brought up property management licensing. And Delegate Schindler was mentioning, we got to do research on it. I already have my memo typed at that time, and I'm like, well, the research is pretty much done. I can give all this to the delegate because there's not much work that he has to do on it. But that this was first introduced in 2017. That never got out of committee. It was put into a committee, never got out of it. In 2020. It was co-sponsored by so many delegates that were there, and just for the knowledge, there are 4 of them are still current delegates, and one's a senator now. One's actually our treasurer in the state of Maryland here. So it's actually, we got a lot of current people that were still very much in this in 2020 of co-sponsoring a bill at the state level to try to get some sort of certification process put in place. And it passed the House 134-0. So it was unanimously supported at the House level, but then got hung up in the committee at the Senate and never moved any further on that one.
There's a surety bond issue.
The surety bond, yep. So in 2021, that, it was co-sponsored and it moved through. It passed the House again. It was basically the exact same bill from 2020. There was nothing really that changed in it. This time it went through at 100-32, but still was approved and moved forward. And it got into the Senate again and then got assigned to the Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs Committee. And then in 2021, this bill was very much supported by the Maryland Realtors, Maryland Building Industry Association, Maryland Multi-Housing Association.
MML.
Do what?
MML.
Right, MML, the Maryland chapter of the NAIOP, which is the Association of Commercial Real Estate, and the Maryland Attorney General Consumer Protection Division. So 2021, it was really sponsored. I'm really kind of surprised this one failed again, but it failed in which now known as the Education, Energy, and Environmental Committee. And as Scott pointed out there, that really comes down to that surety bond issue that people got a little hung up on it because they were feeling smaller property management companies couldn't afford that would be too detrimental to their business of trying to afford that, because there are claims through the fiscal review that the bills had out that there are claims to the Maryland Real Estate Commission for claims against property management companies. And so that's why the surety bond was naming the Maryland Real Estate Commission on those. So then any payouts they had to do was basically covered by the bond that the local property management company would have. So, if we were saying, if we wanted locum licensing, which has been a discussion here before, but until I dove into the state law and started looking at things, I'm like, we do not have the manpower for it. I mean, it is just overwhelming. Our department could not do this. I mean, even at the state level, who was already has a whole entire department for licensing just individuals for part of Department of Labor, that they were requiring 2 additional staff people for the whole entire state. And I'll be honest that within the bill itself for the surety bond that they mentioned, I understand that that's for protection for the Maryland Real Estate Commission and how they want to pay things out. But reading all the other, I didn't read every state, I'll be honest, but I read a lot of them. And that seeing what other property management licensing programs that are done in other states, there needs to be some sort of testing requirement and some sort of CEU requirement associated with it to maintain a license, just to ensure you're getting qualified individuals for it. Because anyone could say, I want to be a property management company and get a surety bond, and then you would be licensed with the state on how the previous state legislation was written. So it kind of seems like it's a little bit of a gap in it, because real estate brokers all have to pass a test. So why wouldn't they hold the same standard to that? And that's in the other 40 states. And then we also license real estate brokers in Maryland, but we don't have some sort of state standard there. So as Councilmember Alshire alluded to there, that I basically said, we need to work with the state delegation on this to try to get something passed at a state level. Because locally, I don't know how we would be able to develop a test locally for people to take. We have to administer the test, and it can't be the same test. So even if you had a 25-question test, by going back to my teaching years and stuff there, that you would need to have a pool of questions for each question that's similar to it. So you're looking at staff creating like a 75-question test and being able to administer it, holding CEU classes and different stuff, because we want qualified individuals on it.
Amanda's up to the task on that, aren't you? Create a test.
Yeah,
Does,
they don't want to take it.
does this preclude the city from doing something simpler?
No.
In other words, for me, if I were a reputable property management person or entity, I would have no issue, no differently than if you conduct permitted work within the city, electric, plumbing, et cetera. We generally sort of require you to register with the city, right? So for me, I guess just a first step, a baby step, if you will, into this process would be to have property management individuals or a representative of an entity of individuals to register with the city. Do we do that now?
We don't for property managers, and just to clarify, for electricians, plumbers, and contractors, it's basically a pass-through license. They already have a state license
I
that
get
they
that.
passed to get.
They
the
have
state
that license. What I'm saying is, but they have to register with us to do work in the city.
Correct.
Now, they use that state identification to do that, it's an easy process, but because that doesn't exist, all I'm saying is, are we precluded as a city from saying, listen, if you want to manage property within the city of Hagerstown, you've got to come in and you've got to pay your $100 and you've got to register annually with the city to do that. That at minimum gives us a face and a name and a phone, et cetera, to contact.
Certainly something we can look into.
And I will tell you, it may create the potential that individuals that want to jump into that are going to be like, I don't think I want the government having my name and number and contact information.
Are
for
you
these
saying ones that are
couple of
located
properties.
in the city or people that, that's.
Conduct business in the
Yes,
city.
or
Just
conduct,
anybody that wants to conduct.
because that's a little bigger pool, wouldn't it?
Well, yeah, that'd be the same with our electricians and plumbers. Is anyone that wants to conduct business in the city has to do it. So we
What I'm
have
saying is, if
people
you
like-
aren't your own landlord
Yeah.
and you are farming that out to somebody or some entity, we just need that entity's name, number, contact stuff on file.
That's what
You
made
pay your $100 and you do it.
We don't have,
Right.
we don't know who's these LLCs.
So all I'm saying is we take that baby step, we create that, and I'm sure there are people out there in TV land going, oh my God.
There should be like an
you
authorized
know,
representative.
just hating it, but, yeah. And all I'm saying is the person might say, my buddy asked me to run these 3 properties for him, but I'm not, putting my neck on the line with the local government, you know what I mean, to do that. Whereas the 95% of them may say, this is what we do for business, and so this is a step. Clearly, most of them are in the realty industry anyway, and are accustomed to those processes already. So it shouldn't be a big deal.
Part of the application, would you be interested in including, they have to list all of their properties they manage as well?
That'd be fine.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
That'd be a good
I
idea.
think that's great.
Yeah, that was all.
So they need to have a point of
That
contact.
was all.
Right.
Yeah. We
Or
don't
what
need,
you
we don't
add-
need the state to say we can
Right.
at least ask for your name.
You could know who's operating in your own city.
Right.
I can certainly work with legal and coming up with something to bring it back here for that.
Thanks, Councilman.
Yeah, I mean,
I like
everybody else has to in the city.
I mean, it happens all the time. I mean, the complaints you get all the time. And
Yeah.
And I feel like that will protect, adding the city will kind of protect tenants and who is running the properties too as well. So we have all information of each party.
Right, and just to clarify, because you may hear back from that, why I provide that on the rental license application, it's not required. So that a property owner could say, hey, I'm just registering the property myself because I take care of that paperwork, and then hire some management company. We would not know. Sometimes we come out to the property and that's when the tenant tells us, well, that's so-and-so property management company. It's like, oh, we didn't know because it's not required part of the license. So that can fill that gap as well.
Anything else?
All right,
Okay, I'll work on that.
very
All right,
good. Thank
okay.
you. Thank you.
All right, next one is the non-local rental property owners.
Doesn't that solve that?
Great job, Amanda.
Yeah.
Very much.
Exactly.
So so this one was brought up here for some of our non-local rental property owners there, and I wanted to kind of give a breakdown on where are people located that are operating rental facilities, licensed rental facilities in Hagerstown here. So, I mean, I can obviously go through them all, but, within the state of Maryland or within the SStat information. So as we know that you could have an LLC that you just put right here in Hagerstown, they could say that could make it a Hagerstown business or resident that's here locally. But 43% of our rental properties are owned by a Hagerstown resident or business. 7%, which means a total of 50%, are Washington County residents or businesses. And then when you go outside of Washington County, that's another 26% are Maryland residents or businesses, meaning that 76% of the rental properties owned in Hagerstown are from Maryland residents. I won't go down to the different states there, but you can see that we have 26 different states represented and the District of Columbia that are owners of rental property here in Hagerstown. And we actually have 2 countries that are represented, Canada and Poland, actually own properties in Hagerstown as well. So you have a wider range of people that are different locations that they may occupy. And then one of the things too is that, well, where's that number going? Where has it been and where has it been previously to what it is now? The last time I did this for figuring these numbers up was in 2017, and that was 8 years ago. And for Washington County residents owning rental property in Hagerstown was 52% then, and now it's 50%. So you've seen a little bit of a decline of out investment, but it actually increased 1% for the state. So we only really gained 1% from outside of this area, which would equate to about 40 properties or so that are no longer Maryland residents. Sometimes when this talks about, well, I have a local person, I have a person in Maryland that is a person that takes care of my rental property or something, which you can say the resident agent. And just to clarify that a resident agent is a person that for a business that is just to receive legal documentation, basically. It does not mean they have any association with that entity that owns the property. And then as through, because I basically just gave you a synopsis of state law, a resident agent can be an individual or another business. It doesn't have to be a individual. And this goes on to the point that Scott mentioned last week during the delegation discussion there, is that you can just go down this rabbit hole of that you don't have a person that's associated with that LLC. You can have an LLC with a resident agent being an LLC. That LLC has a resident agent being an LLC, and so on. You get 5 or 6 down, and all of a sudden you're back to the LLC that was the original one that you started with. You just go through a big circle of LLC. So it's frustrating on that aspect when we're trying to find a person responsible, and you keep on getting businesses. Sometimes people say, well, I provide the code office or the neighborhood services with contact information. I have a designated contact person for it, for my rental property, because by the rental facilities ordinance, we do require you to provide us with a contact person, but it can just be the property owner. So we have some that are people in Florida and Colorado that they're the contact person for their rental property. That's who we call when we have an issue. We give them a call. They have to always like, well, we have to get someone local and we'll get back to you. So we wait for that. Other jurisdictions do have requirements. City of Cumberland was the only one I could find in the state of Maryland that actually has a local contact person required in their rental facilities ordinance. They require someone that either resides in Allegheny County or has a primary business location in Allegheny County. So they require that. Then in Scranton, PA, they have ones where you're within a 20-mile drive of the rental facility or the designated manager. So I'm kind of interested in a 20-mile drive type of a thing. And then in Charleston, South Carolina, they said that they had to have a representative that lives within 30 miles of Charleston if the property owner is out of state. Well, you know, South Carolina's a little bit larger. You can't get across South Carolina in 30 minutes, but if you're out of state, you need someone within 30 minutes of Charleston. If you were in state, you were still okay with theirs. You know, looking at all of those types of things, you know, we want to make sure that if we're having a local contact person, that there's some sort of minimum standards. I know Councilman Brownshire mentioned something here just last discussion here. So our recommendation is waiting until some sort of regulation at the state level was put in place, but open to any ideas and thoughts that you all may have or questions.
And where we really find this is an issue, especially when it comes to water. And if a resident, when they're informed if water hasn't been paid and they're getting cut off, that's the responsibility of the owner, not the tenant. And trying to find, the tenant would say, well, I've been trying to contact my owner. You know, they never return my calls. They don't contact me. I get mail returned. Well, how do you pay your rent? Oh, well, I do a cashier's check and send it to this PO box. You know, those are the kind of, that is really the one issue we dealt with downstairs a lot, was just the fact that they just go in the wind at times. And there's no recourse if the toilet overflows. Who are you going to contact? The guy from Florida is not driving up here to fix your toilet. And many times they won't even contact a local business to take care of it, and stuck doing it yourself. So, but I agree with you. You don't want to, you don't want to create bad on bad. If you're going to a property management company, it's not a reputable or not a real.
I do agree that you need to have someone local that's running it, because I can't remember the situation that had happened with where the doghouse is located. No, luckily that manager, I think he even still had to get on a plane, but it's just the point.
COVID.
Yeah, he still had to get here, but if he had someone within that 30-mile, these other examples that you gave, it would have been easier for him to attend to and address the issues with his building, especially when it's buildings that are multiple units, so
We find this a lot with tax sale properties too, that get acquired during tax sale by these warehouse companies. Just go out and they just buy 10s and 20s of these properties. And then once they turn them over, they're gone. And then it becomes, what do you do as a tenant? What do you do at that point?
I agree with staff recommendation to work with the state delegation to see what kind of standards we can implement for property management.
And it's one that we can bring it back to looking at Councilmember Upshire's things that we bring back to you, and we work with legal on that and say that if we come with a licensing component for contact information, then you could always look at amending it where once we have that something established, then we could have it where, well, then there needs to be someone that's within a certain radius or whatever the scenario may be.
I think we can still, I think both of these memos would be good to send to the delegation, just to say we are looking at this and we'd like to have your support moving forward and trying to get something, not a local delegation bill. I think this would be something they could get support statewide for. I would hope finally they could do that.
Right. I mean, looking at all of those, I mean, almost a lot of counties are represented. It wasn't something, I mean, honestly, with any of the co-sponsors or anything else, it was not Western Maryland proposing it. It was the part of that 95 corridor, basically.
Yeah, it could be some alternative to a surety bond. I mean, there's got to be another option other than that. If you own so many properties or your net revenue is this, then you don't have to get a surety bond. If you're bigger, you have to get one. Maybe something like that.
They had previously on that one where it was 50 units at first was proposed, then they
Right.
lowered it down to 20 units where you had different surety bond levels.
There's got to be something.
Well, thank you for doing all this research. You're like an expert now.
I doubt that.
Doing this a long time.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Next up, we got Chief Kifer, the lodging out of doors ordinance 30-day update.
Deja vu. We've already been up here once.
Went in effect August 8th.
Well, thanks again for having me back up here again. This is just a little update, as promised, that we said we would do every 30 days during the enactment of this ordinance. And what I'm handing out, what you have copies of, and I've made enough that there'll be one.
You know what?
I also have one that go to the media as well, so we cover all that, so just make sure. So this ran from, this report covers August the 8th through today, so it's slightly over 30 days. So since we've implemented this, we've had documented 23 contacts. And of those, these are the categories we've covered. We had 14 reactive, which means that we were responding to complaints, and we had 9 where we were officer initiated. 21 individuals, 2 groups of friends was one of them, and then there was a 50-50 split basically of public and private property contacts. 12 public, 11 private. The service engagement, we asked some questions, and one of the things we asked is, are they aware, the people that we contact, were they aware of the ordinance? 17 reported being offered or aware of, or were they aware of the services that were provided for them in our community? 17 reported they had been offered or aware of the services. 3 reported not being offered services prior to our contact. Participation in that, 19 are not engaged with public services, and 4 were currently engaged in service engagement. So a lot of what we're seeing is that, and talking to the Homeless Coalition meeting that Ashley and I were at last week, this is not something that was a surprise to us or to the community partners. The lack of engagement of the people that are having these issues and seeking resources is very low. And that's not just here, it's everywhere. So we're seeing that, and it kind of proves that. 22 were unemployed, 1 was employed. 15, the housing status were homeless with no place to go according to them. 5 chose to stay outside. It was their choice to be there. And 3 had options, but conflicts prevented them from use. So those conflicts could be anything from their person that they live with at home, parents or whoever it is, won't let them smoke marijuana in the house, or some other issue that would keep them from going home. So they would stay out instead. 18 local residents, 5 were from outside the area, Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Philadelphia, Frederick, and 1 from Tennessee. Officers' observations, we had one of the questions we asked of the issues that we think were contributing to the issues that they might be coming across these individuals. 4 had controlled dangerous substance involvement. 1 had controlled dangerous substance and a mental health illness that we were aware of. 1 with a mental health illness only that we were aware of. And in some of the contacts, we couldn't determine what those situations would be. Outcomes. We moved 11 people along and informed them of the ordinance. 10 we moved along and they were already aware of the ordinance. 1 was arrested for unrelated charges, and 1 was arrested on a warrant. We did not charge anyone with this ordinance in the 5 weeks that we've been doing this so far. And as you look back through the pie charts, it kind of just covers those areas. Councilman Burnett, one of the things you had the group make up was one of the issues you were concerned about when it comes to families and that kind of thing. So you can see here, almost all of them are single. And there was 2 groups that were with friends. There was more than 1 with them. Like I said, 50-50 split with the locations, essentially, private or public. And same thing with the proactive. It's pretty straightforward down the middle. I wanted to give you guys is we're going to post this on our Facebook page and website to the public as we move forward, but I didn't want to do that so you guys saw the data first. I want to be as transparent as we can be to everyone that's had concern about this ordinance and what we're doing. It's a tool in our tool belt that when we need to use it, we can. We have to use it, we can. So it's just, I wanted to prove to you that our word is our bond, and what we said we would be doing is what we're doing, so.
And again, going back to our previous many conversations on this topic, having the data is really, really important. Not only to provide us guidance on how this body moves forward, but other agencies as well. Especially you mentioned the Homeless Coalition, having that data. But what's striking to me is sorry, I lost my train of thought. Was this person the question of, was this person offered services during your stop, or did they indicate that they've been offered services in the past?
Yes.
I think that's really important.
Yes.
With 82%, yes. But I do, for that question alone, though, if it's possible to break that down, to have just the question alone of, did they indicate they have been offered services in the past?
We changed that. We did find that out.
Okay.
We started this, we changed that question for the guys to ask, so now it's, were they knowledgeable of the resources or offered that prior to our contact with them?
Right, and I think that's really important because, a lot of the feedback we've gotten is, these individuals are not aware that these resources are available. And at the same time, they are aware, they just don't take advantage of that. But from the reach emails we've gotten that the mayor spoke on a couple weeks ago, is that this ordinance has helped those who were aware of resources, but actually getting them to the help that they need and
I
getting.
mean, for that, we wouldn't have gotten any otherwise.
Exactly. So this data is great for visibility, to see what our community looks like. And going back to your point that you mentioned too a couple weeks ago, is that officers aren't actively trying to target these individuals. And the number reflects this. It's 23, right? And again, the feedback we've gotten were, you're going to actively go out and get hundreds of people into this ordinance and target them in this manner, but the data doesn't show that.
And half of those, we responded to a call that we were called to go there. So it wasn't that we chose that. So even that 23 is, half of that was our involvement without someone calling us and complaining. We just happened across a situation that lended us that. I will say that in looking at the data and responses to that first question you talked about the services being offered, majority of that's going to be true that this was prior to our contact. I'm not going to say that absolutely in this one, because I know some of those numbers were different in there, but the majority was. The one thing that I think is the key is the second pie chart after that, which is, are they engaged in public services? And 82% of those that knew of those resources said no.
That's 19 out, that's what's alarming to me, is 19 out of the 23
Right.
are not engaged
So
in
that
public
means
services.
they're not receiving the resources that's available.
They're not engaged in
Right.
resources themselves. They've been offered the resources.
They don't want
They
it.
don't
They didn't
want it.
engage it, right?
Right.
So that's that free will we've talked about.
Right.
That, and sometimes it's people with mental illness, they don't think the same way, and it takes other avenues to get them help sometimes. People in active addiction, again, sometimes they have to get to a certain point before they take that step. So, and then other people either don't want the services at all, and they're happy with how they live, or they're making this choice themselves. So people that have a place to go, of those ones that had a conflict at home, they do have a place to go if they wanted to, whatever that conflict is keeping them from doing that. Some of them were choosing. There was 5 people that it was in that first number that just choose to be there. That's what they want to do. So yeah, that's neither here nor there. It's kind of prove that we're not targeting and criminalizing people in these situations. That's not what we're doing.
But this is also establishing that 23 individuals had an interaction with officers,
Yes.
providing them the guide
Yep.
of all the resources. And I think establishing a community that, for awareness that they are thought about, they are, this isn't something that, we're doing maliciously, but it's a way to get the help that they need if they're willing to. So it's 23 contacts that.
These contacts would have happened even without this ordinance. It's just with this that they were just advised of the ordinance, they didn't know about it. That's all. And again, that's that education component. But
Right.
we would have still, if you guys would have never voted for this, we would have still had these 23 contacts would have happened no matter what.
Chief, so all the officers are totally engaged and along with Ashley,
Ashley.
right? So when if they're coming in contact with them, they know what to offer them, what to hand them.
If they
all
don't,
that.
they call Ashley or they check with other officers on the shift that have maybe have other knowledge of that.
Okay.
And we got some young officers that might not know all the resources, but they provide the resource guide. They can hand that resource guide out. If they don't know exactly, they'll ask questions.
So, because I see like the charts are really good. I have to say that. So obviously we can look at the employment and see that that's very large. In your opinion, what's a way to where we can engage to where we can possibly find out what is the employment or living situations that they're having a hard time with? Like, like I'm not adding any extra thing into it, but if it's like, okay, you're not employed, what is that hurdle? Is it the identification?
You mean for a question to get to
Yeah, and I'm not saying like now we got to add something additional to the list, but I didn't know if
I know.
If
It's
you were-
very much on a case-by-case basis. Again, if you are trying to engage someone dealing with a mental health issue or an active addiction, they're not gonna, most of them, I've never actually met one that holds a job because they have other things that they need to take care of before they can do that. And many of them don't have housing. That's why they're homeless. So those two things kind of come after you address and are able to assist with that first problem. We've also had, even recently, I was dealing with a large family that was homeless, and the mother had recently had a baby. So she had older kids that were school age. She's able to work, but she is having trouble finding daycare and navigating that. So there are other reasons why folks that maybe aren't dealing with other issues, childcare, things like that. So I think that's what you're asking. Like, what are those other barriers that are
Right.
preventing
What is all the
employment?
hurdles
And
that
so
go along with these?
specific to the families, because we do see families pop up, especially with cold weather season coming up. A lot of times it's childcare. It's childcare. A lot of times we're dealing with single parents, especially men. If you're a single father, we have less resources in the area for single men than we do single women. So just those are a couple of the barriers that you might see.
I don't have an easy answer for asking those questions to figure that out. I know moving forward with our alternative response team concept that we're trying to put together and get, now that Ashley's back, that would be one of the things we could do, because we could spend time on that, at least from the team standpoint. They can engage these folks and get more in depth on some of those questions and ask.
And we
I know the community resources do that, but the individual officers usually don't go that far with it.
Right, that's what I'm saying. I didn't
Yeah,
want to
more
add an
case
additional
management.
question to
Yep.
them,
Yeah.
but like, where do we figure out
Yeah.
where we can kind of
And a
fill in
lot
the
of times
gap?
officers know that. So there's a very stark difference between someone that they know is battling an addiction issue versus maybe a single mom of 5 kids who's homeless.
Right.
And a lot of times when they have those other issues, they're making a direct call to me because they know that it's a unique situation. It's going to take a lot more on that case management side and involve a lot more community partners. So they call me usually when that happens.
Yeah, her first week back from being deployed, she helped two
Like, come on
She
back.
helped two young ladies with 2 very large families, one with 4 kids and one with 7 kids.
5 kids.
And she spent, her first day back, she spent 13 hours helping these families
Thank you for that. Thank
to
you.
get them in a safe place. And it actually was longer than that, but 13 hours on the first day she came back. So that's kind of engagement that we have in the family with the young lady with 7 kids. Officer Robinson, who works part-time for us downtown, was the officer engaging her and was caught in contact with Ashley and was doing everything they could to help. So the officers are compassionate when they have to be, which is 99% of the time with the people they come across in terms of their situations. But we still have a job to do. My job is we still have to provide safety and security and the rights of everyone else that live in our community. So, that free will can't impose upon those things. And that's where this ordinance really plays a part, helps us give us that.
Good, good information.
All right, and then we'll be back in 30 days and we'll have to date 30 day, and then we'll do the year, basically start of the ordinance to date.
And we'll get this information out and published also.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're still back.
Yeah, you guys stay here. I already know about this, but I want to explain to the council the Police Standards Mental Health Project Grant, and what you want us to put on special session for next Tuesday.
Okay. I'm gonna let Ashley, she is the architect of this grant application, so I'm gonna let her speak to it.
Oh yeah, we're just asking for the PAC grant. It is a state grant that we received for peer support funding for our peer support team, our officers. We have a peer support team. We certainly this year at the police department with Officer Dean, the incident that happened, peer support has been something that we have been really stressing at the department. We had actually written this grant asking for more peer support funding and a mental health and wellness conference for our officers prior to that incident. So I'm glad that we got it. So the state has approved that grant. We did host in conjunction with the IAFF Foundation, the local that our HFD officers are part of, firefighters are part of. We did host a first responders mental health and wellness conference last year with the support of some state funding. And we wanted to do it again this year, and we asked for state funding. We asked for state funding specific to a very well-known first responder mental health and wellness speaker. And he is booked out through 2028, but he is willing to come here because he knows that I've been trying desperately to get him for many, many years. So this was actually set for the agenda at the end of the month, but because the state has told us, hey, we are going to give you the funding for this purpose, we wanted to go ahead and push that up because the deadline that I need to have a contract paid is October 1st. And I know that's a really fast deadline, but he's essentially doing us a favor. I am not at liberty at this point. I don't want to say his name because he is doing us a favor. And if this doesn't go our way, I don't want to say it out loud, but he is a celebrity status speaker. I don't know how much you know about speakers for events, but they can be very expensive. We did a cost analysis, a market rate analysis for the governor's office. That was all submitted and approved. So the money is through the governor's office through this grant, along with some other. The whole amount is not just for peer support. I know that professional standards through a software company that we currently use is also on there. But we're just asking you to kind of move your timeline along so we can go ahead and get that speaker paid for the conference that's tentatively scheduled for April of next year.
So you're asking us.
We just didn't want to have it on the preliminary agenda and you say, what the heck is it? Yeah.
$800
Yeah.
And
to
then,
accept money,
Well,
to
yeah,
offer support.
yeah,
correct.
but, and she's right, there was a deadline to
Yeah,
get
there was a
him.
deadline. We didn't want this thing.
It's the deadline for that.
And then we have to
I'm like, girl,
Has to go.
I'm like, are you asking or
Come on.
you could have just told?
Anytime it says
Yeah,
to
let you
accept
know and
funds,
just get your blessing.
I want-
I do have a question. So with this, is this just for officers and first responders?
So the actual mental health and wellness conference is open to the general public. We do give priority though to local first responders. The last conference we had was our first one. Captain Marie and I from HFD, we worked really hard on it. We worked with some state partners. We had over 100 people attend and lots of them from other agencies. We actually had not a whole lot from our local agencies. We had a ton from the Quad State area because we're the only area in Western Maryland that does something like this. Most times, if you're from Garrett or Allegheny, Washington counties, you all know we're going to Baltimore, we're going to DC if we want something like this. So that's why it was super important for us to petition the governor's office for funding.
this
to
gal
do
draw a
something
lot of
like this.
people.
For sure. So we expect it to be super big this year. Yeah, I'm excited.
Should draw a lot of people.
We're
in the city.
excited. Yeah, good.
Yeah, so it will be open. We'll have vendors. There'll be other things, but yes, it'll be open to the public with priority given to first responders and their families first.
And this is basically getting you guys' blessing to put it on special session for Tuesday of next week.
Yeah.
And then next week you can
If you
Hopefully
bless
give
it,
us your
then we
blessing
can,
again.
yeah, we
I'll
can
bless
do
it
the
again.
purchase order and get him paid and have him set up for
And
April.
then we can start to
Before
wrap
October
things.
1st.
Everybody good with that?
Absolutely. I know we're able to do ride-alongs because I've done that with Captain Langston. Are we able to do ride-alongs with you? Or do you ride alone or do you always ride with the officer?
That's a very great question. It changes on a daily basis. So yeah, you absolutely can ride with me. I can show you things. But yes, when I am solo, it's a little different than an officer. My engagement with people is different. There are many times where if I'm still engaging with someone, I'm going to have an officer, even if I'm not riding with them, still come with me. And when you ride with me, you can see how I engage differently than they do and how we work together as a team, because it is a very different dynamic with a civilian and an officer, and we can work well with each other.
Make sure you get an air conditioning car.
Thank you.
Make sure you have air conditioning in the car when you go. Thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. City Administrator.
All right, just a couple things. The first is, want to congratulate Brittany Arizmendi and Leah Richards on a great Battle of the Burgers on Saturday. Congratulations to Bailey's Bagels and Brews that we decided that evening that they were going to change their name to Bailey's Bagels, Burgers and Brews for winning the best burger contest. That was the judging part of it. The People's Choice went to Brick House Tavern. That's going to be opening in 28 South here in the next week. So every burger was, I think the top five were within like 0.5 points of each other when it came to the vote. But great turnout downtown, great energy downtown, and it was a fun day. And then this weekend at City Park is Fall Fest. Also, it's the South End Block Party that Bessemer Community of Hope puts on, 11 to 8, with fireworks starting around 7:30. So look forward to that. Thank you, Mayor.
Councilwoman Anderson.
I don't have much tonight. I just wanted to say, love thou neighbor, love your neighbor, respect your neighbor. It's a tough time right now in the world for everyone. And that's all. That's all I have to say for tonight.
Councilwoman Bell, I'm sorry.
I don't have anything.
Councilman Asher,
I don't have anything.
Councilwoman Burnett.
I want to speak to the tour at the call center or the real-time information center that we visited at HPD at 2 o'clock this afternoon. I told the mayor when I walked in, I felt like I was on a scene of NCIS with all the screens. It looked very much high tech, but the cameras is so clear with 630 cameras in over 200 locations in the city. And I made the comment like, to commit crime here with all these cameras, you have to be a fool. There's very much eyes on the license plates, the drones, to just overall technology is amazing. And HPD is setting the bar for not only the state, but the country when it comes down to using the tools that this body and previous administrations have given them to make sure our streets are safe. So thank you to HPD and kudos to everyone involved.
Councilman Flaherty.
Yeah, I'm just glad with HPD's data they provided us that no one has been arrested since we passed it. So, we're looking at the data and nobody's arrested for being homeless and they're aware of services. So I'm glad the public will get to know that more. So.
I'll reiterate what Councilwoman Burnett said. That was an amazing thing to see today. All the technology, watching those boards was really fun. And I want to extend a thank you to Chief Kifer for having us out there to show us all that. That was great. The Battle of the Burgers too. I don't think I'm ever going to do that again, judging that contest. And trying 8 hamburgers put me down for the rest of Saturday afternoon and evening. So I think I'm not going to do that anymore. I also had a chance to visit with Cub Scouts Pack 252 yesterday. It was the Webelos. It was 4th graders. It was a lot of fun. The parents and the Scoutmasters probably had just as many questions of me as they did, but some of the great questions coming out of those kids' mouths was amazing. I mean, asked if I lived in a mayor's mansion in Hagerstown. I'm like, where is that? I'd like to know where that's at. The last thing I want to say is everybody has a letter of support. It's for the Maryland State Arts Council, seeking a grant through Maryland State Arts Council Capital Grant Program to provide funding for the installation of a line array speaker system. Just want to get your blessing on that letter of support. We good?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, and that's it for me. Do I get a motion to adjourn? Second? Any discussion on any items tonight? All right, we're adjourned.
Hello and welcome to Council Wrap. I'm Wes Decker, joined today by Hagerstown Police Department Chief Paul Kifer. Welcome back. It seems like we have talked about this lodging out of doors ordinance in innumerable amount of times. And you've even had conversations and answered questions during some of the regular sessions. Now we're 30 days in, and I feel like we're exactly where you anticipated we would be. So give us a little background on that update once again for our purposes here, and then just give me your feedback on where you feel things sort of landed.
Well, you're right. And we've been talking about this ordinance since December. We actually started back in 2018 looking at this ordinance, but then the Supreme Court ruling was a little different for us, so it was just tabled at that point. Right. But since December, after the Supreme Court ruling happened out west, we brought the ordinance back to this body and had numerous conversations with this body over the course of those several months. All good. I'm glad we did. I'm glad they can make an informed decision on these things. But from certain members of the body, at least in the beginning, were a little afraid of what this looked like or what it was intended for or what the consequences of this would be. And as I've stated, all along, and my staff has stated, this is not a targeting of homeless people by any stretch of the imagination. This was a one more tool in our tool belt to be able to handle very specific situations when they would occur. And as I stated early on, up until the point of the ordinance being enacted, from January till that point in August, it would have affected one person. It would have affected one person at that time. And that was the example we kept providing, was that situation. And so it's been 30 days, a little more than 30 days. And we've had 23 contacts with individuals in our community, half where we responded to a call that got us there, and half where we came across these individuals for whatever that reason would be.
Right.
And the split was also 50-50 essentially on whether it was private property or public property. No one has been arrested for the ordinance. No one's been cited. There's been 2 arrests. One was for an unrelated charge, and one was for a person who had a warrant for their arrest. So that was the 2 arrests that were made in those situations where the ordinance had no play in that whatsoever. One of the things I want to clarify is that those 23 contacts would have happened whether we had an ordinance in place or not. It would have been, nothing's changed that.
Right.
It's just now we're providing that information to those in the community that we do have this ordinance, and that if you're found on public property, you could be charged with this. But as I stated to this body, and I've stated to numerous community groups I've spoken to since this has been going on, we're always looking for voluntary compliance. That's the first thing we're looking for. Just like the war on drugs, just like every other thing we talked about, arresting people is not the solution to the problem. And these problems are very complex and way beyond law enforcement. We're just the people that touch these people on a regular basis more than anybody else in terms of individual community partners. So we're in a unique situation to help guide or refer or influence people to get the assistance that they need, whatever their situation might be. And I think the data that I've provided to council and that we were providing to the community after tonight, to be transparent, kind of shows that. That a very large percentage of the people that have been offered services that we've come in contact with, which is a very small number now. We're talking 23 people. Right. So from a statistical standpoint, it's really, statisticians will look at me and say, that's not a true number that you need to look at. But just as a moment in time, a picture.
Yeah.
82% of those people are not engaging in services. They're not taking up the opportunity to help themselves in whatever that situation is. And again, it's not I'm not saying that to be harsh on them or blaming them. Yeah. That's just the reality where we are.
And I think to some degree, Chief, we sort of knew that already.
Yes.
It's just now that we have some statistics that bear that out, even if it is a small number, it still indicates that.
Right. Yeah, and that's what I'm saying. So I'm not being judgmental of them.
Sure.
Again, people that are suffering mental illness or addictions issues. It takes something else to sometimes, their mind's not working like people that don't have those issues going on. But we've come across a variety of people. Most of them are from Hagerstown. I think we had 4 or 5 that were from out of town, as far away as Tennessee and Philadelphia, Prince George's County, Montgomery County, Frederick. Unemployment's the number one thing that we saw. Was the most commonality of most of that was unemployment. As Councilman Bell asked, do we know what that reasons are for that? We don't delve into that far. But I know Ashley, who does my liaisoning with the community and with these people, she kind of knows some of them more intimately. She knows what their reasons are with some of the individuals, not necessarily the ones we've come out with in the last month, but yeah. So we're working with our partners. We've talked to the Homeless Coalition. They're seeing a positive. Some of the partners have talked about an increase of people coming in and seeking services and mentioning the ordinance as a thing that's got them encouraged to come in more. I think they're afraid they're going to be charged with something. And so if there's an unintended positive consequence from this, that would be what I'd say that we've seen right now from hearing from our partners.
I know one of the big pushbacks, at least in terms of those who have shown up to meetings, is this whole notion that this ordinance criminalizes homelessness, which you've said from the very beginning is not the case. But have you had a chance at all to engage with any of these individuals to find out where they're coming from on that, to try to get your point across and say, here's why that is not the case?
Sure. And after the last council meeting, when we had some of the people here commenting on their opposition to this, I actually spent time in the hallway and spoke to a few of them out there. And as a matter of fact, that evening, one of the young ladies that was in here is one of our homeless individuals that suffers from some mental illness. And I spent probably at least an hour with her out in front of City Hall, talking to her and working on some things with her and trying to get her some engagement, which is what we do. And I've been to the HARC meeting. The mayor and I went to the HARC meeting last week where we went to talk. There were some concerns from the religious faith-based community about the same concerns. So the mayor and I both were able to speak to that group and alleviate a lot of their misinformation that they thought they knew. I've, like I said, been back in front of the Homeless Coalition and spoke to them. We had a very, very large turnout for a Homeless Coalition meeting this last week, to the point where we had some organizations that were here from the Gettysburg area that do community action council kind of work. They heard about the ordinance in the meeting, and they had some questions, and I was able to explain to them. And they had heard prior to coming to the meeting that we had some kind of ordinance, and they were same thing. They were worried that we were doing something that we shouldn't. And so when they heard what we were doing, how we were approaching it, some of the data I had I could share with them, they had a change of heart to some extent, to the point where they want me to talk to their chief of police up there, and they may have some other organizations that want to come down and talk to us about what we're doing as a community, not just as law enforcement. So it's been really positive, I got to say.
Well, it's encouraging to hear that it's well received once a conversation is had between two opposing sides, because that frankly doesn't happen a lot in today's world. So that is a good thing to hear.
You've got to be open to hear people's concerns. And I have no qualms of anybody coming in and opposing an ordinance or a law or our actions. If they believe what they believe, then that's the right to believe that. I'm completely okay with that. I'm not here to be defensive about those things. I know where my heart is. I know where our heart is, what we do as an agency, and I know what we're trying to do in our community. That I'm righteous in that sense, and I know my guys are going to do all the right things. That I don't need to go out and be overly defensive about it.
Oh, I know your conviction is heartfelt. I sense that all the time, and then you try to back it up with the facts, which oftentimes are statistics, just like the ones that you provided tonight. But that can be a very frustrating situation, because we've talked about this perception of downtown being unsafe, and you've pointed out the statistics over the years and how things just continue to trend in the right direction. Yet you still hear people saying these things. So for those folks, I mean, is there truly any getting through to them? I'm just wondering where you come from as far as that's concerned, because it's still an issue, certainly, that people think that, but you can't just knock them over the head.
No, and I'm never going to say that there's no getting through to someone to see a different perspective. I think just like what we talked about with the population that we're dealing with under this ordinance and our contacts with them, sometimes it takes something different for them to change their mindset or see it differently or be willing to see that. So the only thing we can do as community members, as government workers with the city, is just keep telling the truth and showing and proving it through our actions.
Right.
And having those testimonials of other people that come here that love what they see when they come to our city. And
that's a big part of it.
And when you see, when the community starts to change because people from outside our community start to come here and start investing and living and playing and enjoying our area, the mindset of those that have grown up here and have seen the tough times, have seen those other issues, and have been unfairly biased towards an image of Hagerstown that they believe is what the image is. I believe it can change.
Well, lots of changes being made at the police department, and you've certainly been at the forefront of that. And those who you employ are very good at thinking outside the box. And today, as Councilmember Burnett mentioned during her comments, got an opportunity to experience a little of what used to be the call center, now the real-time information center at Hagerstown Police Department headquarters. Talk a little bit about that. We have a video in the works that will be coming out eventually that will show and tell people, but give them a little background of what's been going on, because it is incredibly impressive.
It is. I'm proud of everything we do at our department. I'm proud of all the men and women that work at our department beyond anything I could ever explain. But as when it comes to a single kind of project kind of idea, the vision that we had set this thing out to be and what we wanted to accomplish with it has far gone well beyond everything we ever even dreamed we were going to do with this thing. So we started off with what we called the Watch Center, which was bringing individuals in that were retired cops, dispatchers that used to work, that wanted to come in, and they would take calls for service over the phone to free up our men and women when we were so short-staffed. It was a means to an end in the beginning. I mean, we had to come up with some outside-of-the-box solutions to figure out how we could do this. So it freed up our guys to handle those calls that only they could handle, but these other calls that could be handled telephonically and that kind of thing we were trying to do. And we set a goal with that of 30% of the calls while the Watch Center was operational, that they would take 30% of the calls. We have gone to 45% while they're operational of just that component of what the real-time information center still does. They still do those calls for service. But what we decided we wanted to do with the influence of the part-time staff that worked that center, really, they drove this. They wanted more responsibility. They wanted more. They said they could help if they had access to different things. And that access was really technology.
Yeah.
So they did research. They started looking at what other places were doing around the country and how things were being set up. And they came and said, if we could do this, we could really help the agency and the community. So we built our real-time information center on the third floor of our building. We renovated a space and we developed a space that has a bank of monitors, big, large monitors. There's 4 monitors at each station, plus all these monitors on the wall, and they can throw different screens up and run multiple things at the same time. And so they're running our citywide street cameras up they're running our drones. They can view the drones as they're flying. They will be flying the drones from the center here in the next few months with the grant we received. So we're going to be flying a drone as a first responder program, which we were after for a while. So that's going to start. We have ShotSpotter. Basically, it's a ShotSpotter is a unit, a product that is a name product, but it's the same thing. It's a shot detection system.
Gotcha.
So gunshot detection system. So we have one that we've purchased, and we have one that a company wants to beta test with us. So we have 2 of them going at the same time. Wow. And And that links into all the technology to that center. So if a shot's fired, it pulls up the cameras in the area where the shot's fired automatically for the center, and they can start looking for this and push that information out to our officers. We've got license plate readers throughout the city that we've done through our technology driven stuff, to the point where we're apprehending a couple stolen cars a week. Wow. Where that car hits our system, alerts the center. The center starts to pull these things up, and they start to track the cars via our camera system. And we've got a software system in place with our camera system that makes it so easy. As you saw on the screen, there's little arrows that indicate if the car is going this way. You click the arrow, it takes you to the very next camera system, so you don't have to try to figure out which camera to go to.
Right.
And they can real time track people and cars, and then just call that information into the officers on the street, and we can slowly just come in and take care. So much like we did with the dirt bikes back when we got the drones, we're utilizing the same technology to do all these other things as well. And now we have these very dedicated civilians that work in our Arctic Center. We call it Arctic. That they're basically virtual investigators for us. They are doing investigations on the virtual side and relaying that information real time to the officers on the street. That the guys, the men and women on the street, just love that, and it just makes the efficiency of what we do so much faster. I mean, we're apprehending homicide people within hours of a homicide. 2 or 3 hours, we're making an arrest because there's 2 people working that center, and one's following real time at that live, and one's going backtracking on the camera system to start identifying and helping to figure out where this happened and started at. So much is going on there. We've got the state's been touting us around the state as being the premier law enforcement agency with technology.
You guys are setting the standard.
We are,
and truly are.
We are.
I mean, I don't say that in jest at all. I mean, that is the case.
I get credit for this, but I got to say, the men and women in my department that see how this stuff, that they see this technology, they figure out how to bring me a plan, and if we can make it work, we can find the money. So I got my grant writers that are brilliant at writing grants to get us grants for these things. I've got my tech guys. I got detectives that and officers that do all my tech stuff. I don't have outside tech people doing this. They have better knowledge and interest and buy-in than any company I could come in here. And we have great partners. You know, this body, the previous body before us has provided us the funding to be able to do the things we do. Without that, we wouldn't be able to do what we're doing.
Yeah. Their commitment has made all of that happen. And then, I mean, when you watch this stuff, and I was so impressed today because when you watch this, it's almost like watching a TV show or a movie. Now, of course, when they're shooting, they know exactly where everything's going to happen for the most part. But with what you're doing, like you said, with the arrows on the screen, and they can follow a vehicle, they know exactly. I mean, even if that vehicle, as we saw today with one of them, is taking some sort of a ridiculous path that you would never anticipate as a human being, that this vehicle would take this trek to go wherever it's going. These cameras follow it the whole way through.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
We're really proud. We 6-7 years ago, we decided we were going to take a different path with the technology and really become more focused and intentional. So we wanted to do we wanted these we wanted to have 630 cameras, 6 years ago, and we could have did it on the cheap, and we wouldn't have the outcomes we have now. We built the infrastructure, took our time, and decided we're going to do this in a layered way that makes better sense moving forward. And then we've been identifying technology that plays with each other in a way that before it was too much silos, things that didn't happen. So now all that technology, our body cameras,
everything's interconnected,
our license plate readers, our drones, our street cameras, all that comes into the Arctic, and that staff can do that. And they will literally take calls from dispatch essentially, and they will run with it with our guys on the street. They can run tag numbers, they can do all those things, and they can do it as an investigator almost, and be ahead of the game. And I got some really dedicated staff, obviously sworn, but I mean, my civilian staff is top notch, and I know they don't get the credit they deserve, but from every civilian staff member I have, I mean, that not just the Arctic Center, I got some really great staff members that just love what they do. And the men and women in that center, want more. They're hungry for it. They want to do more, and they're part-timers. I mean, outside of Ben, who's my supervisor, the only full-time guy I got up there, everyone else is part-time, and they just want more. They're just hungry, and they want to do a good job, and they really do. They're proud of what they do.
They are super knowledgeable and just magnificently talented in what they do. I mean,
They also,
they're-
so most of them are drone operators now. They've been certified to fly drones. So
Yeah.
even our cadets
Yeah.
who work in the center, they rotate in and out of the center. So yeah, we're going to have the drone as our first responder here very soon. We're working through some details with which drone product we want to go with and marrying it up with some other things. But we got the grant for that, and that'll be a surface-mounted drone in a box that is always on the ready, and it's a self flight. We just punch in the address, and it will fly itself to the address, and then we take control of it from there. And
crazy.
The technology's just, our technology was born out of necessity. And as horrible as those times were to go through that shortfall and struggle the way we did and have our community worry like they did, there's been a blessing. That blessing has been that we got the support from here to supplement that lack of staffing with technology. And it still takes people. Technology doesn't fix any of this. Without the people working in these centers, without the guys on the street pulling these cameras up on their cars and helping each other out with that, technology wouldn't mean anything. Yeah. And our state partners who have seen our center, that tout us, have said that. They've seen centers that were bigger spaces than ours. A lot of the same technology that we have, they just don't know how to use it like we do. So I'm really proud of our guys. Really proud of them.
Yeah, I think you should be. And speaking of blessings and being proud of individuals, can you give us an update on Officer Langley Dean?
Yes. So Langley's doing really well. If anybody didn't see, he was at appreciation night at the ball game at Mariners Park last Thursday, and was able to throw the first pitch out.
Wow.
With gusto and with purpose.
It's fantastic.
And so he's still on the mend, and we're still waiting on him to get approval to come back, even on light duty status, which we anticipate will be not too far. But he's doing really well with good spirits. He's healthy mentally and spiritually, and he's just got to get some physical abilities back. But he's anxious to come back to work, and his wife and his family are fantastic people, and we're just blessed and grateful that we're able to say this, that he's going to come back to work. And we're just waiting for him to get the clearance from the medical staff for him to come back. But we're excited for him.
I know he has an outstanding professional support team for sure, and always great to talk to you, Chief. And
Same here.
All of the things you've got going on, and as I said, I hope people will keep an eye out for that video of what's going on there at I want to get the name right, the Real Time Information Center, because it is like nothing that you've ever seen. I mean, if you've watched things on TV, like I said, maybe that's a little taste of it, but I mean, this is real life stuff, and this is happening all the time. And I mean, just the technology being implemented by the individuals there, again, just can't say enough about it. So thanks for everything you do. Thanks for everything that your team does, and just keeping the city safe and just moving us forward in a way where we can truly be proud, and we should be proud of where we are as a city on many levels. But I think as far as public safety is concerned, certainly the voters said, hey, this is what we want. The council said, this is what we want. And I think we're moving, of all things that the city is doing, cohesively, we are moving in the right direction as far as that's concerned.
I agree with that. Yes.
So, again, thanks for your time here this evening. Thanks to all of you for watching, and I hope to see you next time on Council Wrap. For now, that is a wrap.